This week, I want to continue playing with the Army Painter speed paints and their colored metallics as I paint up the Hulkbuster armor for Iron Man from Marvel Crisis Protocol. The Army Painters starter set for their speed paint line is releasing this weekend, and I'm pretty darn excited about it because I think the paints are pretty solid. But I wanted to give you guys one more peek at how exactly they can work, especially over top metallic paints, specifically colored metallics. I did a little bit of testing during my Bretonnian Knight tutorial, and we got some great results. Everybody in the comments really gravitated towards the colored metallic with the blood red speed paint over top of it. And so when I saw that the Hulkbuster armor had just released for Marvel Crisis Protocol, I thought he was the perfect opportunity to test out and see what these paints look like on a fully finished model. So let's go ahead and talk about what we need to do to get him primed up and then get painting the Hulkbuster. I've come down to the Imperial bunker because I need to get the Hulkbuster primed up, but I'm going to be treating this model a bit differently than I would normally. Normally, I would want to prime the model up using a lighter color tone because I'd be working a lot with speed paints or contrast paints. In this case, we're working with speed paints. And while I will still be working with speed paints on this model, I also am going to be basing him in some metallics. And metallics work a lot better if you have a black primer underneath them. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be focusing on the Hulkbuster himself, getting the black primer there, and not really worrying too much if I don't get black primer on the base or the smoke beneath him. That I'm going to hand prime later using a lighter color tone so that my speed paints actually work a lot better and show off their color tones properly. But for now, let's go ahead and get this model primed up in black. It's that time of the video where I interrupt to tell you about my Patreon and to let you know that we just added a Discord server which all tiers get access to. So if you're wanting a way to chat with me, share with me your projects, or just tell me what board games you're playing, definitely make sure to check the link below and check out my Patreon. I want to jump straight into painting with some of these colored metallics, and because we are working on a Iron Man suit, we're going to start with Gemstone, which is a shiny red metallic that you might remember from my Bretonnian Knight tutorial. I absolutely love this color tone, and it goes down super easy onto the model, taking only 2 coats to get an even coverage. Now, I do want to call out, as I'm working on this model, I am following a guide that I found online, a nice lovely turnaround of the Hulkbuster armor, and I'm going to be trying to stick to that as closely as possible so that I can keep this model on character. All right, I've got him with all of the red gem paint on the model, and I'm really loving how he's looking. It's perfectly what I imagined, but I'm at a decision-making point. I kind of want to go over my process with you guys because there's some choices I can make here. Either I can continue on with the metallics, moving on to the golds and silvers and working on those details, or I can switch over to the speed paints and actually apply the red speed paint to all of my red metallics, which is what I'm leaning towards doing because I think because the speed paints are really flowy and I don't want to worry about consistency issues or streakiness when I'm putting this color down on these really large panels, that it'll be easier for me to do it now when I don't have to worry about overlapping that color onto anything else. If it gets on the black, that red paint's not going to matter because it'll get covered up. But it'll be able to just get into all of those little crevices and stuff now. I can just be as heavy-handed as I want. I don't have to worry about streaking. So I think that's what I'm gonna do, and then we'll come back to the details after that. Guys, choosing to work with the blood red speed paint next was the correct choice. I was able to get this color down evenly and quickly without having to worry about it staining anything else on the model because nothing else has been painted on it yet. I absolutely love the way that this color immediately enhances the red color tone of my metallic, making it a bit brighter and a bit more saturated, which is just perfect. Now it really looks like true Iron Man armor. Going back to my guide, there are 2 other main metallic color tones we need to apply to Iron Man's armor before he's complete, and we're going to start using a bit of plate mail steel. This is going to represent most of the more recessed areas of the armor, showing off the more mechanical bits of his suit. I love how this goes down, but it's a little brighter than I really want it to be. So I'm going to pull out Gravelord Gray and apply this as a wash over top everything we just painted. This knockbacks the shininess just a bit and makes it a little bit darker, giving it a little bit more of a true iron look, which is what I was going for. There's one main color tone missing from Iron Man's armor, and that is gold. So we're going to pull out Greedy Gold and apply this to all the remaining spaces that are unpainted on his armor. This takes a little bit of time because the gold does take a few more layers than some of the other colored metallics that I was working with, but in the end, it is totally worth it because I have a bright, extremely yellow gold that I think is perfect for Iron Man's armor. However, I want to enhance it a little bit more, and for that, I'm going to apply a bit of Pallid Bone. This color really works with golds really well. I absolutely love how it just settles into the recesses, popping some of the details back out to make them shine a bit more, and it deepens that yellow tone just enough to really make it sing against that red, and he looks so much like Iron Man. I'm so happy with how this is turning out. Before we move away from the armor and start working on the base, there's one key element we still need to take care of, and that's the arc reactors. And for this, I found a new paint that I absolutely love, and it is Fairy Dust, which is a pearlescent white metallic that comes in the Colored Metallic set from Army Painter, and it's so cool. We're gonna put this on the arc reactor, and then we're gonna pull out Plasmatic Bolt and apply it over top, and we get an immediately blue glowing effect that works perfectly for Tony Stark's arc reactor. I love the way that this works on his hand, on his chest, on his knees. Basically every portion where I put this color tone, it pops beautifully. He looks completely die cast. I love it. But we have his base to take care of, so let's talk about that next. Oh my god, he looks so good! I'm so pleased with how my Hulkbuster is turning out. And I think the reason that it's looking so good is because of how well speed paint works over top these metallic paints from the Army Painter. They just look amazing. And the thing that really tickles me is that pearlescent, that fairy pearl color within the Plasmatic Bolt. It glows just perfectly. It really looks like an arc reactor. I'm so happy with the results, but we have a little bit more to take care of. We still need to take care of the base, so let's get to that next. All right, I'm done gushing about how cool the armor is. We still need to actually finish the full model, and that means we need to take care of his base. So we're gonna start with a dark gray on both the concrete street as well as the curb. Then once that's dry, we're going to move on to a lighter gray and dry brush this over top, making sure to capture the edges so we get a nice edge highlight, which will really make these pieces stand out. Then to help differentiate them, I'm going to actually apply a heavier dry brush to the curb than I do the concrete street. This is going to help make them stand out against each other, and to further that differentiation, I'm going to apply two separate washes to them as well. The concrete street is going to get a wash using Gravelord Gray just to help darken it and recess those colors back down a little bit, whereas the curb is going to get a wash using Runic Gray, which is a beautiful blue-gray color tone that I would compare to Space Wolf Gray. And frankly, I like it a lot more because Space Wolf Gray always comes out a little bit chalky to me. I don't really get a good evenness, whereas Runic Gray is a beautiful color tone. It dries a lot more even, and it's not chalky at all, so I'd highly recommend it. Now, once we have those two washes down and they've had time to fully dry, I'm going to apply one final overall light dry brush using the same light color tone I did before. Once that's finished, we have one manhole cover to take care of, so I'm going to apply some plate mail steel to that, just like I did on Iron Man, but this time I'm going to instead just apply some strong tone shade to that section. This is a little bit of a brown shade from the Army Painter, and I think it works really well to make it a little bit dirty and help keep it looking different from what I did on Iron Man. Well, I'm also going to use that strong tone shade to actually enhance the cracks that you see on the concrete. We're going to apply it lightly into those crevices as well as to the rubble area where it's been destroyed in the ground underneath the smoke, just to really make those pieces pop a bit more. Finally, we need to take care of the smoke. And for this, I'm going to do something relatively simple, but I hope will be incredibly effective. After a little bit of a long off-camera process of repriming the smoke white, I'm going to take out Holy White and apply this to the entire section in one thin coat. Then I'm going to let it thoroughly dry. Once it has, we're going to come back in with a second coating of Holy White on just the big poofy areas next to the ground, leaving the smaller spindly bits that are connected to his feet to be a little bit brighter and whiter. By adding a second layer, it deepens the color, it gets a little bit more gray, and because I go a little bit heavy on this, the colors dry in such a cartoony comic book style, which is exactly what I was going for. So now that the model is complete, let's take a look at the final result. And here he is, my Hulkbuster Iron Man armor. I love how this model came out. I think it might be my favorite model that I've painted so far, and I actually have quite a few models that I love that I've painted so far this year. But this one, because he looks die cast and just honestly stunning with not a lot of effort, I am so pleased. I do want to compliment Marvel Crisis Protocol and Atomic Mass for just doing a great job with this design. He's dynamic, it was incredibly fun to paint, and I love that we get the sculpted bases with their stuff because it just makes it a lot more fun to actually focus on and kind of play with color on the bases rather than having to worry about tufting or anything like that. As much as I do love tufting and all that, sometimes it's fun to just focus on the paint. Now, on top of that, I love the way that my smoke turned out. It came out way better than I was actually anticipating. While I expected the Holy White to do some good stuff because of some of the tests that I'd done off camera with it, I wasn't quite expecting that full comic book swirl effect, and it just looks so cool. And it's also incredibly simple, which I think works with the sort of busy nature of the actual Hulkbuster model. While there is a lot of big flat spaces where there's a lot of red or flat gold, there's still a lot of detail there, and you see a bunch of lines and little gribblies on there, and it works really well to this nice juxtaposition. I just love how this turned out. And I really want to compliment the speed paints for making the armor look as good as it does. As much as those colored metallics are cool, without the speed paints to enhance and stain the colors, they would not look this sharp. I love what they do as a stain, and I'm going to continue using them that way. Their speed paint set does release on the 19th, which is this Saturday, so if you're interested in it and you've been watching other people's reviews or watching mine, I would encourage you, if you're into contrast paints or you're just looking to try out something new, to maybe pick up the starter set because it's a good set of 10 colors, and I think there's a good range in there, honestly. They have a lot of great just variety in the starter set. So that is sort of my wrap up of speed paints. I overall really like them. I had sort of a rocky start with the product, but overall, after I've continued to use them, continue to experiment with them, and not give up on them, I found that they work great, and I will add them to my arsenal. And you'll probably see them in further painting videos down the line, maybe just not with as much specific focus. Now, before I head off, I do want to thank my patrons for providing content like this to continue to be made. Without you guys and without your support, we wouldn't be doing this. So thank you guys so much. I have been Angela, you have been watching Hobby Night, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!